Sports Scene, Hampton Road's premier interview show with Greg Bicouvaris, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic and listen weekly as Greg interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM. From Chesapeake, Virginia, the Lighthouse 100.1 presents Sports Scene. Sports Scene features local, regional, and nationally acclaimed guests and excellent interviews. Follow Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic. Now here is Greg Bicouvaris.
Sports Scene presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com. Sports Scene midweek online, Saturday on the radio on WPMH, AM 1010, 100.1 FM, TuneIn.com by typing WPMH in the search bar. Greg Bicouvaris, glad you're with us. Thank you for listening with Andrew. Tell your friends about Sports Scene. Twitter @GregBic, @GJB Radio, and you can see the rest of my Twitter handles on GJBTV.com. Thank you to our military. Guest lineup presented by Mi Casita Mexican Restaurant with 2 locations in Virginia Beach. Phone line presented by Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville, now delivering. GJBTV.com. NBA playoffs going on. Major League Baseball season is heating up. Golf is going on as well, and a lot of sports in the country. Great interviews, excellent guests, business segments, highlights, commentary, what teased me off. Thank you for listening to Sports Scene. We love our regulars, locals, tourists who listen online and on the radio. Stay tuned. Mark your calendar for May 30th to June 2nd as Saints Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church in Newport News presents the Newport News Greek Festival. Eat, drink, and celebrate authentic Greek culture on the peninsula. Located at 60 Traverse Road off exit 258B on Route 17 in Newport News. For more, log on to NewportNewsGreekFestival.org. See you May 30th to June 2nd at the Newport News Greek Festival.
Opa! Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to GJBTV.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
And welcome back to Sports Scene. I want to thank our good friends at CP Shuckers, a locals tradition on Shore Drive and Pacific Avenue. Delicious food, great appetizers, steak bites, sandwiches, burgers, all the games on TV, Major League Baseball, Orioles, Nats, everything right there. Go by and see Matt, Mark, and all the great chefs at CP Shuckers. Like them on Facebook. It's a pleasure to talk to Phil Wood. We talk to him on Sports Scene regularly. And of course, Phil, good to chat with you, longtime broadcaster in the DMV. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Greg.
Phil, of course, you've done a lot more than baseball. A lot of people just pen you now as Mr. Baseball, but you've done a lot more in baseball in your career, dating back to, what, the 70s?
Oh, yeah. I got started at WTOP in 1973, but actually I started as a news writer. It was an all-news station. And then I went to WRC Radio, and they put me on the air, and I've been on ever since.
Very nice. Interesting story about WRC. When I was at George Mason, the sports director back in the 80s was Bob Gotkin. And, of course, he worked at WRC for a long time as well. Now, of course, ESPN 980 is the signal up in D.C. Well, let's talk baseball right now. What stood out for you so far in Major League Baseball? I guess there's a lot of teams that have played very well, especially like Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle's gotten off to a great start, and I guess, in a sense, people are surprised by that. I look at the American League and National League pretty much as a whole, and as I look at it so far, it seems like so many teams are having the same issue with their bullpen. A lot of players, a lot of key players on a lot of teams are injured. I think there's a couple of other factors going on here. I mean, I think one of the big topics has been the number of players that the Yankees have had out. I think another topic is what managers might be on the hot seat. I think in the National League East, no one's taking command of that. So the slow start the Nationals have gotten off to doesn't really had much significance in the grand scheme of things. And I think right now, certainly in the Mid-Atlantic region, people are curious about what's going to happen with the Orioles, because 47 wins a year ago. The Las Vegas over-under for this season was 59.5, which might be ambitious. I don't know. But the idea that it's kind of a faceless team, and a lot of people in Baltimore are finding other things to do this baseball season.
Yeah, you can definitely tell by the attendance. And since you brought up Baltimore, what are your thoughts about Hyde so far this year?
I really like him. I think he's got a great attitude. I think he understands that he does not have a team that's going to be very competitive. I think that he's got a situation with a general manager in Mike Elias, who has come from a very progressive organization in Houston. They're far more analytics oriented than they were under Buck Showalter and Dan Duquette. It's a club, Greg, that has virtually nothing of great value in their farm system, sadly. You talk to scouts who come through both Baltimore and Washington, and they all are pretty strong in their opinion that the Orioles are at least 5 years away from being a break-even team, and that they really need to move some more veterans this year and bring in some more prospects just so they have something to look forward to.
Very nice. Talking to Phil Wood, you see him on Masson all the time. We'll talk more about Masson and Phil's telecast as well when he's on the air as well. Talking to Phil Wood, Greg Bicouvaris at Greg Bick on Twitter. Yeah, the Orioles started off kind of strong, but of course the Red Sox dipped south. They didn't get much spring training help as well as far as their pitching, but I think the Red Sox also showed themselves when they beat the Rays up pretty bad.
Yeah, this is, well, again, last year people were shocked when the Rays won 90 games. I think they're still a pretty solid ball club, and they've got some great young arms on that club, and I think they have a very capable skipper in Cash. But it's still, you look at the American League East, and your assumption is, even though we're not into May yet, despite the very horrible start the Red Sox got off to and all the injuries on the Yankees, that when we get to August, it's going to be New York and Boston battling it out again with Tampa Bay probably going after a wild card spot. But it's interesting that you see the champions struggle so badly and have again some key injuries. But it still comes down to it's 162 games, and you can't win a division in April. You can lose it if you basically go 0 for April, but it's still the Boston Red Sox.
Exactly. I mean, how many times did this catch up with the Nats last year after the All-Star break? They said, we'll get it right. We'll get it right. After the All-Star break, they never got it right. You can't make up those games, and these games in April, can be devastating as we go into May.
Well, it's true. I think in the case of the Nationals a year ago, I think a lot of their problems were the rookie manager, new coaching staff. I think it took Dave Martinez a while to figure out how to use a bullpen, and I think even as he got into the second half of the season, he had some struggles there. Obviously, it didn't help when Sean Doolittle got hurt last year, and he didn't really have a plan B for a closer. But it's it's a long season, and I think that the struggles, the teams that were good last year who are struggling this year, they'll eventually get it right. I think it still comes down to certain managers who I think are probably on the hot seat, and I think Dave Martinez is probably one of them. I think that Mickey Callaway with the Mets is on the hot seat because he's now working for a general manager who didn't hire him in the first place, and we know that rarely works out long term.
Yeah, the Mets are off to a good start, too. But, of course, DeGrom has had his issues with injuries, and injuries just seem like they supersede a lot of things, Phil, especially, you would hope, not in April, but here we are almost in May, and injuries are already an issue for several teams, especially the Yankees, like you just said.
I look at the Mets, though, Greg, and they bring in a guy who's never been a GM, a longtime agent, Brody Van Wagenen, and he didn't hire Callaway, but one guy he did hire as his bench coach is Jim Riggleman. And if you're going to name a guy who has a lot of experience becoming an interim manager, it's Jim Riggleman. I mean, he did it with the Mariners, he did it with the Nationals, he did it with the Reds. In each case, he ended up as the manager, at least on an interim basis, if not longer. And I'm sure Callaway, who, again, I don't think was consulted at all on that particular hire, he must know that Brody Van Wagenen may be looking over his shoulder.
talking to Phil Wood at Mass, and you see him. Phil, tell the public, I know you get some calls occasionally from this area, from the Virginia Beach area. Tell people when you're on, because sometimes you're on during the weekend, especially the weekends.
Yeah, well, every Saturday morning I do a show called Nats Talk with former Major League left-hander Mike Wallace, who had a career back in the 1970s and has a lot of interesting kind of a left-hander's view of baseball. And then the weekday show, the Mid-Atlantic Sports Report, which when it started 9 years ago I was on every day, but I've kind of tapered off on that because I have a lot of other things to do, and I frequently have to go to a Nationals game when they're at home. So I'm only on once or twice a week. I'm usually on Tuesdays because they do a feature on Tuesdays now on that show called Trivia Tuesday, and I've won it 4 times in a row against my fellow panelists. So it's fun, but it's one of those things that there's no prize involved. So
yeah, I've seen it.
It doesn't put any money in my pocket.
Yeah, some of those questions are kind of tough. You usually have an A, B, C, and a D, don't you?
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
So,
and they are tough, and I give credit to the young men who put that together, who are on the production staff.
Well, now we're on that topic. I got to give the Nationals credit. They've got a powerful station in Richmond. You can hear all throughout pretty much Virginia, WRVA, that's carrying the Nats. But unfortunately, no station in the Virginia Beach area is carrying the Nationals this year. You've been a long time part of the Nationals pregame over the years, and even the postgame too. I know you had some health issues, and we're glad you're doing better in 2019. Speedy recovery and all your health issues. You look great. Talk about what you've done with the Nationals on the radio. It's always fun hearing you with Charlie and Dave.
Yeah, well, about 2010, I guess, I started to do the Nationals post-game radio show, which we do from the ballpark after home games. And, of course, I've known Charlie Slow since he was the voice of the Bullets many, many years ago in the NBA. And Dave came in the second season of the Nationals as his partner, and Jack Hicks, who is the engineer on all the games. Jack and I go back to 1980 at WTOP. So I'm real familiar with these guys, and we, during the course of a season, we have many chats off the air about the club, and it's I think that there's always been really good chemistry there, and it's the adventure I went through last summer with the surgery was interesting. I mean, it's people keep asking me how I'm doing, and I'm doing really, really well. In fact, I'm in better shape today, Greg, than I was when I was in college back in the early 70s.
Great.
After I went through surgery and went through 12 weeks of cardiac rehab, then I joined a gym, and I go pretty much every day. And it's interesting because I feel better. I needed something. I never actually had a heart attack. I had an arrhythmia, which caused me to faint, basically, at the ballpark. But I had someone close by who got me to a hospital. But here's the other thing. I remember walking into the hospital, then I remember waking up after surgery, which was 3 days later, but those 3 days in between, completely gone from my memory. But apparently surgical amnesia is fairly common, but my cardiologist said, oh, you're much better off.
Mm-hmm. Very good. We're going to come back and talk more with Phil Wood about the Nationals, about how packed the NL East is. After this is Sports Scene right here on WPMH. Stay tuned.
Sports Scene, Hampton Road's premier interview show with Greg Bicouvaris, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic and listen weekly as Greg interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM.
Mark your calendar for May 30th to June 2nd as Saints Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church in Newport News presents the Newport News Greek Festival. Eat, drink, and celebrate authentic Greek culture on the peninsula. Located at 60 Traverse Road off exit 258B on Route 17 in Newport News. For more, log on to newportnewsgreekfestival.org. See you May 30th to June 2nd at the Newport News Greek Festival.
Opa! Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic. Email bicogb@hotmail.com. Now back to Greg Bicouvaris in the Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com studios.
And welcome back to Sports Scene, talking to Phil Wood. And Phil, glad you're doing better, of course. And, let's talk about the Nats national TV schedule. I'm coming up there in May, of course, for the Cubs game on May 18th, and I'll see them again in June for the Braves. They don't have a whole lot of home games on Fox. They have 2, some on the road. But the national TV schedule for baseball, I guess they get kind of spoiled because every game pretty much is on MASN, that the national TV game doesn't mean a whole lot to Nats fans because every game is on MASN. Now, when Fox does a game, MASN takes the day off.
Yeah, that MASN is off then. There's a number of games that show up on the MLB channel too. Sometimes it's a backup game, but I don't. Again, that's the kind of thing that doesn't really concern me a great deal. But I think that there are Nationals fans in other parts of the country. Part of it, of course, is the D.C. is such a transient area. There are people who have come and gone from the D.C. area since baseball came back, who probably miss being able to watch the Nationals. But this is, I think if the Nationals had gotten further than the first round of the playoffs over their history, it might be a different story.
Yeah, exactly. And Fox does the schedule in February, well before the season starts. So they really have no idea, let's say, for example, how the Nats are going to be doing and the Cubs are going to be doing on May the 18th. There's no way. There's just no way they're going to know. But
well, of course, and the Cubs have been kind of a just disappointment this season as well. And rumor has it that this will be Joe Maddon's last year in the dugout. So.
Longtime Rays manager, too. Tell the fans who have not been to a Nationals game, from a fan's perspective, I think it's a great place to watch a ballpark. However, from a broadcasting standpoint, the way they've got it laid out there, where the broadcasters are way up on the top row, and of course, the media is one row below, but it seems like it's a difficult vantage point if your eyesight's not good for radio and TV broadcasters, but thanks to a monitor, of course, that helps.
Oh, if there were no monitors up there, Greg, it would be impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first was inside the broadcast area before they'd ever played a game there, I got a tour from the construction manager, and I got up to the broadcast booth, and I looked down, and I thought to myself, well, the game's kind of a rumor. It's just, we know it's down there someplace, but you are exceptionally high up. Now, a couple of the other new ballparks have taken the same route, and part of it is, I think, the fact that we're up there. It's a freebie. I mean, we haven't bought a ticket, so the more prime locations are going to people who buy suites and things like that. But the monitors are a tremendous help, and you reach a point, though. And again, I've seen hundreds of games from the lower press box there over the years since it opened in 2008. That you kind of get used to it. It used to be that every ball hit up in the air looked like it was going out, and of course the shortstop would catch it on the outfield grass. So you've gotten a little better at judging where the fly balls are going to land. But the first reaction to sitting up that high was that you could see a pop-up at its highest point. It was at eye level. It was right in front of you. The other thing is, in the history of Nationals Park, there has never been a foul ball hit into the press box.
I can imagine, yeah. But that's not the case at Orioles Park because that's the best vantage point I've ever seen in broadcasting is where the Orioles do their games at.
Yeah, there are some good spots. Actually, the Nationals in Colorado this week, and the broadcast location there has a real good view of the of the field from a lower vantage point. Going back to when it first opened up, there were some complaints from other broadcasters from out of town that it was too high to accurately describe the game, and there was some discussion of actually moving the TV broadcasters down to suite level, but it never happened, and here we are now. The ballpark has been around for a long time, and nothing, I can't see anything happening to change the location of the broadcast.
Yeah, the All-Star game was there. That came through pretty well. But I will say this, there's a lot of older radio broadcasters around the Major League Baseball, as you well know, over the years. Some, are with us, are still doing the games, including, one for the Reds who's retiring soon. But Brenneman. But I'll say this, though. You can get vertigo up there, Phil. I mean, it's that difficult sometimes.
Yeah, I haven't seen anyone's nose bleed yet, but I mean, you are really, really high up.
You are. All right, let's talk about the Nats now. Martinez in his second year, of course. Everybody knows Harper waited and finally went to the Phillies. I was surprised. I thought he was going to go to the Dodgers or even San Diego, but of course Machado is with the Padres. It seems like he's getting a lukewarm reception everywhere he goes. He got a lukewarm reception with the Mets. He's gotten a few home runs, but it seems like his temper is really kind of been edgy because of all the boos he's been getting.
Yeah, well, I don't think he was terribly shocked by that. I think he thought he might get a little warmer reception in Washington, but that didn't happen, obviously. His blow-up in the game the other day where he got tossed and he actually made contact with the umpire, and again, he was mad based on a call that was made during his last at bat. Then, of course, there was another high strike call to one of his teammates, and he went ballistic on that, and he got called out by Jake Arrieta afterwards. And I'm sure he's not used to that happening to him. I still look at the deal he signed with the Phillies, Greg, and it's not the most lucrative deal in Major League Baseball, and you assume that it would be. Of course, it's a 13-year deal that is worth a total of $330 million, and you look at the annual average value, and it's only a shade over $25 million because it's 13 years long. The Nationals deal was 10 years, $300 million. Now, there was deferred money, but it was still $300 million, so an average annual value of $30 million. But it was clear once he signed with the Phillies that he was looking more for years than for dollars, and of course, if you sneeze, then here comes Mike Trout's deal with the Angels. And I guess that in some sense there was some thought that maybe Trout would go to his hometown team, the Phillies. That didn't happen because I'm sure Mike Trout loves the fact that playing in Anaheim, you're playing in some degree of anonymity because not a lot of Angels games are on national television, and the LA media treats the players like they're gods. So I mean, it's just he's got it made with in an Angels uniform.
Yeah, a lot more laid back community out on the West Coast. You're right, and he likes to be Mr. Anonymous, kind of like Zimmerman for the Nats, but of course he's with an East Coast team, so he's always gotten a lot of publicity. I think you're exactly right about Harper's deal. The more you process it, it just seems like he didn't want to play for the Nationals.
I think he did. I think that at one point he thought he would be going back. If you listen to both sides, both the Harper side and the National side, the Nationals made their offer before the season was over in 2018, and they kept thinking that he and Scott Boras would come back to them with a counteroffer, and it never really happened. It was one of those things where that because there was no communication basically from the Boras side once the initial deal was offered, that when they got back together, the next deal the Nationals offered was for less money, and that was their point was that was a one-time offer. If you liked it, you should have taken it. Mm-hmm. But when there was another meeting, when the Lerners went out and met with Bryson and Boras, I think they thought the offer was going to be substantially better, and it was not better. It was less. And and the Lerners explained, when we made you that offer, we expected you to come back with a counteroffer. You didn't, so we took it off the table.
Yeah, the Lerners have a great reputation in the community, and of course, they pay the players well. Of course, you hear second thoughts whether they pay the manager well, but it's still a nice salary no matter what an average American makes. But what is the patience of Rizzo right now?
Well, that's a good question, because I think the patience of a Mike Rizzo is probably different than the patience of a Mark Lerner. Mm-hmm. I think in the sense that last year, 82 and 80, yes, you had a winning record, and you ended up in second place, but you still were in second place. You weren't in postseason play. I'm not sure that Mark Lerner has the same amount of patience with Dave Martinez that Mike Rizzo does. Mike Rizzo is, of course, the guy who hired Dave Martinez, and after the decision was made not to retain Dusty Baker. But I look at the situation now, and if they were to make a managerial change, I'm not sure that the heir apparent is on the coaching staff. I mean, if it is, it's probably Chip Hale, because he's got major league experience. But it could be, I kid this guy about this relentlessly. It could be Bo Porter.
Yeah.
Bo, who's now on the Masson pre- and post-game show as the analyst. Bo has been a Major League manager. Of course, he was third base coach for the Nationals. He's very well respected inside baseball. And so opening day, I went to Bo. I said, well, get ready for the phone call, Bo. And he kind of looked at me, and he said, what do you mean? I said, because you're going to be the next manager. And he laughed. He said, oh, I don't think so. I said, well, you wouldn't tell me if you knew. And he says, probably not. So, but it's one of those things, Greg, that it's not, you're hired to be fired if you're a Major League manager, and results matter. And I think that the results last year did not go well for Dave Martinez. And I'll say this, if the race stays as tight as it seems to be right now in the National League East, I think Dave Martinez has a chance to be around all season long if it comes down to 3 or 4 teams being bunched together. On the other hand, if we hit June or let's say the 4th of July and the Nationals are 6 or 7 games out, I would not guarantee that Dave Martinez would be managing after the All-Star break.
Yeah, they're tinkering at 500 most of the season. Of course, the Mets a little bit better, but you look at some of the leaders like Tampa Bay and Minnesota and Seattle, they're well over 500. So This is only working in the NL East. It wouldn't work in any other divisions. Martinez doesn't seem like he's comfortable talking to the media in the postgame, whether they win or lose.
Well, I think you're absolutely right about that. I think he does not have the kind of gift of gab, for instance, that say a Brandon Hyde has.
Yeah.
That clearly Dusty Baker had. I mean, he just does not seem to have that comfort level with his own vocabulary. And again, I don't think he's. I think he's an intelligent guy. I just think that there's something about constantly having microphones thrust in his face that kind of gives him an edge.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned the Bo Porter. Bo's an excellent broadcaster too, but a lot of locals here miss Johnny Holiday as well as Ray Knight. Ray had his issues, but those two had really good chemistry together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still speak with Ray. And Ray is still a Nats fan, and he said, expect to see him at some games this year in Washington. Johnny Holiday, of course, is a gentleman who is a broadcasting icon, and working with Johnny was one of the great thrills of my life. And I learned so much from working with Johnny over the years, but I think that Mrs. Holiday, Mary Claire, just simply said, hey, John, enough's enough. It's time for you to give something up now. And I think that because his connection to University of Maryland athletics is so strong, that it was clearly that Maryland was going to win, and the Nats were probably going to be left looking for somebody else. So they used the former sideline reporter as the host, and I think that was inevitable. But it still comes down to Holiday did so much for the Nationals in terms of giving them great broadcast credibility since pretty much day one.
Yeah, plus he'd get back late after a rain delay, and just after a while it just started adding up. You're exactly right. You're not much into social media, are you, Phil?
No, it's funny. People ask me that all the time, and they say, well, why aren't you on Twitter? And I say, because I don't think people care what I ate for lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just, it's, my daughter is, both my daughters have been into social media for a long time, and there's a gentleman who's a lawyer in Washington who tweets under the name Fake Phil Wood. Oh. And so I've talked to him, and he says, don't worry, I'll never embarrass you. I'm just looking for funny things to say. So, but I never really got into that. I never did Facebook. I am on LinkedIn, but it's funny because I get solicitations to apply for jobs almost every week.
Yeah.
But I'm not looking for work right now.
I'm on LinkedIn and have zero interest in being on LinkedIn, But anyway, I like the traditional radio and TV. And one thing I want to leave us with, your TV program is no frills, just basic, good old sports talk. Yeah,
the Saturday show is not very visual, and it's we take calls and we take emails, but it's basically just a couple of kids who went to high school in Fairfax County, Virginia, around the same time who were big Washington Senator fans back in the day, and whose lives were remade when baseball came back to Washington. And so Mike and I have great fun doing it. We occasionally do a live show out at a local restaurant. We're doing one June 8th at Harry's Restaurant, which is at the Airlie Conference Center near Warrenton, Virginia. And we get to kind of press the flesh, and it's a little more, it's a little less inhibited when we're doing a live show than when we're doing a show on Masson. But it's great fun. It's been 9 years now, and we know that will probably end at some point in time. But that's okay, because it's been a great run.
Phil, all the best. We look forward to seeing you at the park sometime, hopefully in May or June, and best of health to you and your family.
Great chatting with you, Greg, and I'm sure I'll see you on the 18th of May.
Look forward to it. Phil Wood, one of the best folks right there from Masson, longtime broadcaster in the DMV. Stay tuned. Mark your calendar for May 30th to June 2nd as Saints Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church in Newport News presents the Newport News Greek Festival. Eat, drink, and celebrate authentic Greek culture on the peninsula. Located at 60 Traverse Road off exit 258B on Route 17 in Newport News. For more, log on to newportnewsgreekfestival.org. See you May 30th to June 2nd at the Newport News Greek Festival.
Opa! You are listening to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Now, back to Greg. It's now time for Greg's Highlights, presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
Highlights presented by Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville. Go by and see Mike and the friendly staff. Mother's Day right around the corner. Spacious, nice dining area, bar, lunch and dinner daily. Burgers, steaks, soups, salads, appetizers, seafood, pasta, chicken, ribs, all the great desserts, beverages, dine-in or carry-out. Give them a call at 523-4832. Go by and see Mike and the wonderful staff at 1255 Fordham Drive. Like them on Facebook, Outback Steakhouse in general. Also, download their app too as well. Outback Steakhouse, great place for lunch, dinner, 7 days a week. Highlights also presented by GJBTV.com, HRSMHOF.com. Big ceremony May 25th. HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com, GJBTV.com. Click the YouTube link on the homepage for archive shows. Our question of the day presented by Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News to our esteemed producer, Andrew. Andrew, in your household, whether you have guests or not, do you fill the trash bag over 6 times a week and take it out to the trash can? Meaning, how many bags do you fill on a Monday through Sunday week?
Oh, yeah. When you drive by our house on trash day, ours can be identified by the trash can that is just overflowing with trash and junk. I've said it before. I have 3 little kids, 2 adults. We create a lot of trash, and it's well over 6. I would guess 10, 15. It's a tremendous amount of trash, and we're very thankful for the city of Newport News and those folks who come and take care of it for us every week.
Yeah, what about recycling?
Oh, yeah. Well, they only do recycling every other week in our neighborhood. So we are routinely just shoving everything we can into that poor blue pail. It's bad. We create a lot of mess.
All right, stay tuned now for a special segment of the Star Wars trailer. Should be really good after these messages. Mark your calendar for May 30th to June 2nd as Saints Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church in Newport News presents the Newport News Greek Festival. Eat, drink, and celebrate authentic Greek culture on the peninsula. Located at 60 Traverse Road off exit 258B on Route 17 in Newport News. For more, log on to newportnewsgreekfestival.org. See you May 30th to June 2nd at the Newport News Greek Festival.
Opa!
We've passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now. But this is your fight. always be with you. No one's ever really gone.
Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to gjbtv.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
And welcome back to Sports Scene. I want to thank our good friends at Sakura Japanese Restaurant and Sushi Bar at 1437 Sam's Drive in Chesapeake. Give them a call at 410-4577, open 7 days a week for great Japanese cuisine as well. Pleasure to talk to Ian Locke as we regularly talk to him on Sports Scene. Ian, how are you?
I'm great, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Tell us about the Tide season so far, home and away.
Home and away, we got a big, long homestand to start off the year. 11 games where we kicked off and ended up going 6-5 over that homestand to start the season. Long homestand, like I said, 11 games is, I think, the longest I can remember since I've been here, and that was since the 2005 season. So, ups and downs kind of thing. Had some decent weather for that first homestand, had a couple kind of standouts player-wise, and decent weather, and played well, and we're happy to get the season underway.
Absolutely. A lot of fun, of course, at Harbor Park. And you talk about that homestand. You joked with us last year during Sports Scene that you sometimes need a little extra energy to get you through it. I'm sure you did for 11 days and nights there. Oh,
that was brutal. It was one of those two where, we're used to long homestands, about 7-8 games or so. This one being 11 was obviously a little extra long, but it came on the back of opening day, and there's a lot of prep on our end from our staff-wise, getting ready, some long nights, long hours, prepping for the opener. So that was, we started on April 11th was our home opener, but that meant, April 4th through the 10th, the week leading up to it, we were still here late, getting stuff done and getting ready for the opener. So it's not just 11 straight days of work. It's probably more like 15 to 20 for us getting ready for that opener and that first homestand. So, for those who don't know, a typical day for a lot of us begins for a night game around 9:30 in the morning here at the ballpark. So, if we have a 7 o'clock game and that ends around 10 or so, and, I usually I'm one of the last ones out of here, probably about an hour of post game. We're getting out of here about 10 p.m. So that's it's a good 13, 14 hours every day for a homestand. So, needless to say, the sleep is enjoyable when we can get it after a week like that.
Not to mention, you got to drive home too.
Got to drive home, and then I got to drive back in the morning. So I had a half hour every day, and in the first, you get home and you don't want to just go right to sleep. You want to stay up a little bit, and so sleep is a valuable commodity during homestands.
Absolutely. And of course, talk about what stood out on the team so far as on the field when they're batting, and of course when they're playing the field on defense.
Yeah, so I mean the big prospect for the Tides to start the year was an infielder named Ryan Mountcastle. He's rated as the number 2 prospect in the Orioles system by a whole host of publications. Baseball America, MLB.com, Baseball Prospectus, all of the big rankers of players have him very high in the Orioles system, and they also have him rated among the top 100 prospects in all of baseball. So not just Orioles-wise, he was rated anywhere from the mid-30s to high 80s, somewhere in there. But consensusly one of the top prospects in baseball, and he sure proved it. The first week, he was named the International League Player of the Week. After he hit 4 home runs and actually had 17 RBIs through the first 17 games of the season. So, 22-year-old kid. I mean, he had 4 home runs at Harbor Park, which is not an easy thing to do. Harbor Park is certainly a pitcher's park, and for a big young kid, he's acquitted himself really well, and we hope to see that continue because he's certainly a talent that people are going to remember seeing play here at the ballpark.
And the Orioles have tapered off after a nice start. Of course, the whole American League East has struggled. The Yankees are playing really good, and so are the Rays. Yeah,
it's crazy to see how well the Yankees have played too with all the injuries they've had. I mean, they have essentially an all-star team on the disabled list. So they've won a bunch in a row to kind of pull within Tampa, and the Orioles got up to a good start. They've struggled a little bit at home, surprisingly. Last year they were scuffled a bunch on the road, and they won. I think they're 7-6 on the road to start the year. This year they've just scuffled a little bit at home. So it's very early in the season, and one thing that has shown up already is the Orioles are, as in years past, aren't afraid to dip down to Norfolk and pick up some of the players down here. We've already had 10 players appear for both the Tides and the Orioles this season, which is kind of crazy considering it's mid-April, late April. They've already had 10 guys play for both teams. So, you never know when you go to a ballpark game at Harbor Park, you're going to see a player play for the Tides, and next day could be batting cleanup for the Orioles. Who knows?
Yeah, attrition. It takes a lot of time for the body to heal physically and mentally after spring training, and then to get into the grind with no days off. It's really difficult. Look at the Red Sox. They didn't get a whole lot of practice, and they really slumped the month of April. Yeah, absolutely. It's tough. It is a grind. I mean, you play, at the AAA level, 140 games in 152 days. And a lot of people think, hey, it's baseball. It's not a violent contact sport like football or, any of those sports. But, those guys play once a week, and then they have a week off to kind of get their body to recoup. And, baseball it's a grind. It's every day. You generally, the most days off you're ever going to have in a month is 3, which is that's not that many. So you have, just constant week after week, day after day, putting some strain on your body. So, it is a long season, and the Orioles are going to, kind of use Norfolk as a extended bench, if you will. So they'll dip into our pitching staff a whole bunch, and they've done the same in the years past, and we anticipate that going forward as well. You talk about your homestands coming up to see some of these young players play. Talk about what's coming up as far as the next 2 or 3 homestands. Yeah, so we have another big long homestand, 10 games coming up beginning May 2nd, Thursday, May 2nd through Sunday, May 12th. We have 10 games in 11 days. So at least they mixed in an off day for us, one of those games, which is nice. But May 2nd through May 12th is our next homestand. Both the Saturdays, May 4th and May 11th, are fireworks nights. In fact, at any Saturday night the rest of the season, fans want to come out to a ball game. Every Saturday night the rest of the way we'll have fireworks, which is a nice thing to have. So on May 4th, we're actually introducing, as part of minor league baseball, has done Copa de la Diversión, which is a fun cup, which basically it celebrates the Hispanic / Latino community in the area, and we've kind of transforming our team name from the Norfolk Tides to the Pajaritos de Norfolk for a couple 5 games this year, and May 4th is the first one of those where we'll have different jerseys, different kind of some Latin flair stuff going around the ballpark. A new mascot we'll be introducing, so that should be a fun night at the park. And then on May 11th, the next Saturday, is one of our big nights of the year, the Armed Forces Night, where we honor all the brave men and women that serve in the armed forces and give some discounts to some military personnel. So, 2 big nights coming up. We also have the Pawtucket Red Sox for those Red Sox fans in town. They're coming in from May 7th through May 9th. So it's a big long homestand, and we got plenty of stuff going on, and we'd love to have folks come out. What was the force behind the Latin American influence? I think it's really neat. Yeah, it's a cool thing. It's minor league baseball in general has kind of led the forefront on that. So they have 72 different teams taking part in that this year. So the Tides are one of 72 different teams to take part in that, and every single team has its own Spanish, heritage identity. Ours is Pajaritos de Norfolk, what Pajaritos means baby birds. So it's very similar to, since we're the Orioles affiliate, it kind of ties in there. But there are, some Richmond is the Flying Squirrels, and they have a different, different Flying Squirrel mascot for that. But each, all these minor league clubs have these different kind of namesakes that they're taking on for several days throughout the year, and it's just a neat thing to kind of celebrate the heritage. So many of our players too are from Hispanic, Latino communities, and they love it. We're going to have our jerseys are bright orange. We have orange pants, which is something you see a lot in the Dominican and Venezuelan winter leagues, but not so much in America. So our jerseys look a lot different. We have some great merchandise that people can find on our in our team store and online. So
it's a really cool initiative, and we're happy to be celebrating it, and we're looking forward to May 4th, one of 5 games we're doing this year.
Very nice. And of course, everything is on the website, correct?
Yep, absolutely. If people want to go to NorfolkTides.com, they can find out that if they scroll down towards the bottom, there's a Pajaritos de Norfolk link. They can click on that and kind of see the whole schedule of what we have, see some merchandise that we have, and just kind of get an idea of why we're doing it and what it's all about.
We're talking to Ian Locke right here on Sports Scene. Glad you're with us. Don't forget to go to gjbtv.com. Click the YouTube link for archive shows. Folks, YouTube works like Google. You type in the guest name, it'll pop up, or type in any subject in YouTube, and it'll pop up as well. Sports Scene airs every Saturday morning from 10 to 11 on WPMH for the locals and the tourists on AM 1010, 100.1 FM, and tunein.com by typing WPMH in the search bar in real time on the radio as well. What has stood out for you so far in the International League?
Offense. This is generally known as International League. For those who don't know, there's 2 AAA leagues. There's the Pacific Coast League and the International League. And the Pacific Coast League is generally considered to be more an offensive league, while the International League is more of a pitcher's league. But this year is the first year that all of AAA baseball is using the Major League baseballs. So there used to be a Major League ball and a minor league ball, and this year AAA is using the Major League balls as well. And they have a little different feel to them. The seams are a little smaller, and depending on who you ask, they tend to go farther. And the home runs in this league are drastically up. They've almost doubled through the month of April. Now, the weather in April has been a little warmer than it was last year, but the current pace in this league is to see about 600 to 700 more home runs hit in this league than last year, which is an astronomical jump. So it's definitely made some a lot more offensive games. I mean, generally at Harbor Park we see 4-2 and 5-1 games, and we saw a lot of 9-7, 8-6 games the first homestand or so. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues throughout the season. But home runs and offense in general is up across the league, and pitchers are going to have to make adjustments because these baseballs do seem to be going a little farther than they have in years past.
Well, let me ask you that. I know it's kind of a trivial question. You see all these balls in Major League Baseball. How many baseballs do you guys go through the course of a game, and whose job is it to supply the baseballs?
Yeah, so we have to purchase those baseballs ahead, and we go through about, I want to say it's like 6 or 7 dozen a game.
Wow.
And but those, you've got to figure, one thing too is the Major League baseballs that we're buying are more expensive than the minor league ones were in years past. So, every foul ball that gets hit in the stands, obviously we're thrilled that fans can come to a game and get a foul ball, but that's also one less ball we have left here to use throughout the year. So we got plenty of them. We're not worried on that front, but it is crazy to see that how many baseballs are used, per game. And for those who don't know, we have, the balls come in, the little plastic wrapper. You don't just take it out of the wrapper and then stick it into a game. They have this special baseball rubbing mud that they use to kind of dirty up the ball a little bit, so it's not as slick. And it's not, instead of being like bright white, it's a little off white. It's kind of, they rub this mud into it that kind of gives it a more a different feel. And the pitchers don't like to throw with the brand new unrubbed up balls. So you put the mud on the ball and rub it up, and every game someone's got to do 6 dozen of those. And if there's a game where goes extra innings or a lot of foul balls, they're going to have to rub up some more during the game. So that's a task for one of the ball boys or bat boys or someone in the clubhouse every day, and that's just one of the kind of behind the scenes jobs that not a lot of people know about, but it's very integral to to each game.
Absolutely. And of course the fans love the souvenirs when they're hitting to the stands if they can collect them, but it's not like you're going to the local sporting goods stores and getting bats and balls either.
Exactly. I mean, we have there's a agreement with the league, with minor league baseball and Major League Baseball, where we purchase these obviously in bulk. We're not going every day and buying them like that, but we get a giant shipment a couple times throughout the year where we have them, and it's a matter of storing them where we want to put them here at the stadium. But in years past, and if a pitcher came down from Major League on rehab, they had to use Major League baseballs for them. It was kind of a weird rule where the balls aren't crazy different, but they are different. You can feel if you have a minor league ball and a major league ball in your hand, you will be able to feel the difference a little bit. And those pitchers that obviously use the ball, there's different seams and the grips to throw curveball, changeup, whatever, what have you. They can tell immediately the difference. And in the past, when major league pitchers were sent down in rehab, they have to use major league balls in that. So that's a change that's this year. And like I said, the offense has kind of gone up because of that. And not just in minor league baseball, AAA, major leagues as well. The offense home runs are up across the board, and some people are blaming the ball, some people are blaming the weather, but there's no. Whatever the reason is, the offense is up, and people are seeing a lot more home runs. Tell us about your social media. Yes, so if anyone wants to come out to a ballpark and kind of wants to check out what games, when the games are, what the times are, go to our website, norfolktides.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, that's at Norfolk Tides, and Instagram, also Norfolk Tides. And then if anyone wants to go, Facebook as well, facebook.com/Norfolk Tides. So we populate all that stuff throughout the year, and any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Last quick question, that dreaded W word, the weather, how's it been so far? Well, we had 11 games in April, and we only had one rain out, so that was good. That was a pro. We got rained out Friday night when we had a lot of those tornado warnings and things around here, but for an 11-game homestand in April, we did okay. We did have 2 rain delays during that, but they were very brief. So we were able to play through them on those. So knock on wood, only one right now so far, but it's weather in Virginia. We know sometimes that pops up, and we'll do our best to adapt to it and take it on going forward. Ian, thank you again. We look forward to talking to you in May. All right, sounds great. Thanks, Greg. Thank you. Ian Locke right there from the Norfolk Tides here on Sports Scene. Stay tuned. Mark your calendar for May 30th to June 2nd as Saints Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church in Newport News presents the Newport News Greek Festival. Eat, drink, and celebrate authentic Greek culture on the peninsula. Located at 60 Traverse Road off exit 258B on Route 17 in Newport News. For more, log on to newportnewsgreekfestival.org. See you May 30th to June 2nd at the Newport News Greek Festival. Opa! Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to gjbtv.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. What tees you off? Presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com. I want to thank our good friends at Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News. Go by and see Paul and the friendly staff for a great meal, lunch, dinner, appetizers, salads, boneless traditional wings, great roll-out menu, great all-American burger as well, excellent food, desserts, a kids menu, all the games on TV, NBA postseason, NHL postseason, golf, tennis. It's right there at Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News at 12150 Jefferson Avenue. Download their app, get some great points, give them a call at 249-3999. Celebrate good food, birthday parties, whatever you want at Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News. Wings, beer, sports. All right, what teased me off, one of our favorite segments, Joe Daniel, was at a store to collect a check. The owner called me up to tell me, come by and pick it up. The gatekeeper at her store stood in front of her desk as if she was a warrior protecting the king, knowing that she was sick, but kind of like saying, nope, you can't get past me. The gatekeeper making it tough for you to see the person you want to see. Yeah, if you're the person hiring the gatekeeper, that's a real great quality that you're looking for in an individual. Man, it's frustrating, though, if they go beyond what they're intended, the purpose they're intended to serve, and certainly frustrating if you're the person on the other end. Absolutely. Yeah, the gatekeeper is not the owner. Repeat, not the owner. This has happened to everybody with technology. Texting the wrong person a message by accident. Oh, gosh, when I was a little bit late to the game with smartphones, and for whatever reason, just the way it operates, it was just so much easier for me to text the wrong person as opposed to my other phones, and gosh, that's embarrassing. Fortunately, I don't think I did anything horribly bad, but it's still annoying to have to tell somebody, hey, I screwed up, this isn't for you. Relying on others, and they get it on their own lazy time, not following through in a consistent way like, oh yeah, I'll get to it whenever.
Yeah, I struggle with that. I always want a deadline. I always want a time where if you want something done, when. And I wish that people would honor that when I'm looking for them to do something as well, whether it's a job, a party, getting together with someone. Put it down on paper and let's just do it.
This goes back to not being the owner. Worked at a TV remote recently where one person, Andrew, obsessed over iced tea and having a trash can nearby. Well, first of all, we're not working for you, working for a company.
Yeah, it's funny the things that people will just get hung up on, and especially when you're performing, broadcasting, having to get yourself in a mindset to be in front of people or speaking to people. Gosh, that's just the last thing that you want distracting you. So it's really unfortunate when that happens in those situations.
It's nice to work part-time. We call them side hustles. But when they become 8 to 12 to 16 hours, they're not a whole lot of fun no matter what you're doing.
Absolutely.
All right, going to a full-service car wash, and they slack on the vacuum cleaning, which you're paying for.
Yeah, anytime you're paying someone to do something, you like it to be done and to completion. And I don't know, it seems like particularly the service world is just having a hard time getting good help. I don't know if it's the manager's fault, if it's just you can't find good help. I'm not sure what it is, but man, it just seems like that's a constant issue these days.
Yeah, finishing the task, folks. Finish the task. How about this? We all deal with this during the spring and the summer, especially. Lawn maintenance people who personally don't cut the grass short enough so they will get back to your yard quicker and try to make more money. That's not the attitude to take.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I've heard that argument. Longer looks better, and hey, if that's what someone prefers, then fine. They can pay to have it done more often. But yeah, I had my own landscaping company as a young person, and it's you don't want to skin people like that. That's just not a good way to do business.
This time of the year we had Lent recently, of course, and Greek Easter, regular Easter, whatever. But Andrew, this first and foremost, this does burn out. We all pretty much work full time. We have families, we have friends, we have activities. I'm all about church, but an overload of activities is too much. There is a saying, everything in moderation, because you have too many activities that can burn people out.
Yeah, my family grew up Baptist, and the expectation there is at least 3 services a week, bare minimum. And then you have the Easter season, you have Christmas season. I think pastors and church leaders understand there needs to be more of a work, family, church balance in the congregation, and I think we've got to figure that out, because you're right, you can't juggle it all. It's impossible,
especially at night. There's just no way.
Absolutely.
Fasting is personal, Andrew, but let's leave it at that. Fasting is for some people that have to watch their diet. Young kids, it's totally different from an adult who can fast properly. But fasting is more of a mental thing as well.
Yeah, I've personally experienced a lot of spiritual benefit from fasting, but more and more you see studies saying that it can be quite beneficial for your health as well. I think God was pretty smart when He commanded us to just give our digestive tracts and our stomachs a little bit of a rest every once in a while. So, yeah, it's a personal decision, but I've been benefited from it for sure.
Yeah, we all have to reset physically and mentally. I totally agree. The whole woe is me thing, Andrew, we all get knocked down. Life knocks us down. Not every day is rosy, no matter what the weather is. We simply got to pick ourselves up.
Absolutely. It's a challenging thing. Sometimes you need someone to help you sort of pick yourself back up, but you need people that aren't going to just sympathize with you in the sense that they keep you down, but they're going to say, hey, get up, overcome this. You need those people in your corner, and you need to commit to being that way personally.
This has all happened to us too as well. You see the big maintenance people parking their vehicles and trucks right near your driveway, right near your street, obstructing, doing somebody else's work, but they want to physically take it out on your side of the space.
Yeah, that can become a real problem, and I manage some properties, and I'm constantly having to instruct people that, no, you actually can't block a driveway with your vehicle. This does create problems, so yeah. I completely empathize with that.
That's what tees me off.
Thank you, too, for your great show, because it really makes people think about topics that are important. I listen and I love, and I've called in before, too. I just really appreciate your program. I also think that it's good to have debates, because it lets us all dig a little deeper. Hey, what does God's Word say about that? So I appreciate your show. I think it's great, and I think we all should be digging deeper into the Word of God and seeking God as to what He's called us to do.
Be sure to tune into Picking Up the Habit every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. here on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM.
I want to thank our guests today, Phil Wood from Masson and Ian Locke from the Norfolk Tides. For more, go to gjbtv.com, at Greg Bick on Twitter, at GJB Radio on Twitter. Hampton Road Sports Media Hall of Fame, May 25th at Langley Speedway. For Andrew, I'm Greg Bicouvaris. Enjoy your spring day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Did you know that on average each week, 28 babies on the Virginia Peninsula die by abortion? Maybe abortion has touched you personally, and you know how overwhelmed a woman can feel when facing an unplanned pregnancy. CareNet Peninsula is a community-funded nonprofit bringing practical help and hope in Jesus to women facing difficult pregnancy decisions. Would you participate in our Spring Walk for Life fundraiser to raise awareness and fund our local pregnancy clinic? Visit cnpeninsula.org/events to register. That's cnpeninsula.org/events.